Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Good man, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. 8 a.m. in the Sunday morning, right? Wow. What else can you expect?
Well, it's 10
That's
p.m. over
that's
here in Australia,
10
and
p.m.
this is like 2 hours past my bedtime, man. I'm old now.
What do you guys sleep at 8? That's unusual. But anyways, um, so how's things been? Like things are in lockdown and stuff. So
Things pretty crazy over here. We actually had a
Mm.
mandatory face mask type wearing thing. So like on Wednesday, everyone, if you leave your house, you have to wear a face mask now. So it's mandatory. If you
wow,
don't, you'll cop a fine.
wow.
Fun times.
I know, fun times.
How is it
I
in
know.
America, man?
I mean, we are always competing, and we are always welcoming other nations to compete in the March to Death. So we have like figures like 70,000 infected in one day. So it's a competition. It's more like a competition of how many we can get infected in one day.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a very unhealthy competition, but it's a competition nonetheless. So America is
Yeah.
always competing. So they're competing on who is becoming the next epicenter. Like Florida is the next epicenter. So they're planning what's going to be next. Like, can we hire the death toll? Can we put it up to 80,000, 100,000 people in one day? Stuff like that,
Yeah.
you know it's way beyond my visualization or my field of understanding. But yeah, it's going great. I feel like people are enjoying the fact that they're getting infected, so they're enjoying it. So yeah, it's a sporty feeling here.
Yeah, you're
Uh,
winning the game.
Mm,
Isn't
yeah,
Florida
yeah.
like full of
mm.
old people as well? Like, because I know you
Um,
said Florida's busy. Aren't they like just people trying to avoid taxes, make some money on Miami Beach, South Beach, whatever it's called, and then you
yep.
just retire and die there anyway?
Yeah, it's it's a place where taxes are low, and I feel like people go there for holidays and stuff, and apparently they're going there for getting infected. So yeah,
Yeah, two for one.
welcome to
Yeah,
infected Florida. So
The
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
uh, the NBA is about to commence like the rest of its season in like 11 days or whatever, 12 days from now, and that's in Florida, Disneyland Resort.
Really.
Yeah, so
uh,
fun times ahead for that. But oh man.
So
Anyways,
you're talking about.
so
Go on, Nick. I'll let you go.
I felt like you were about to say something good there. So talking about the way America has been progressing with the coronavirus, why don't we
yep,
just have a topic about progress?
progress.
That was a lot of facial
Mm.
expressions. I'm still getting used to the Zoom thing. That was a lot. I could
Yeah,
feel what you're saying. I didn't even have to listen to it.
that's great.
Yeah,
Mm.
See,
pretty much. So look, America's winning, and today the topic is progress. So America's progressing ahead of the world. So we had some pre-made questions before this, guys. Believe it or not, this doesn't just happen out of nowhere. There's a lot of man hours put into this podcast, so you better appreciate it. Right. So the first question is define progress slash maintenance slash regression as it relates to the gym.
You kick things off, Connor.
I'll
yeah.
answer my own question. Right. So I think progress can simply be seen as like moving forward in terms of training. You could define that based on a bunch of qualitative and quantitative things. So usually in the gym, we use more quantitative measures. Yeah, we use qualitative, like how good you pump, how tired are you, what are your fatigue levels, blah, blah, blah. But
Mm.
progression, particularly us, because we are biased from like the physique strength world, I think it's fair to say most of us, and this is probably where the podcast will go to, but this even applies to the general population, is mainly weights. So weights are cool because they're very, quantitative. It's got kgs or pounds if you want to boost your ego on the other side of the world. So you can literally see, okay, 100 kilos is more than 95 kilos. So that's the idea of progression. You've moved from 95 to 100. If you're going to maintain, you'd be at 95 kilos in squats and you'd stay in 95 kilos in squats. If you've regressed, you've regressed. So there's my very simple take on it.
Nick.
Oh man, you summed that up quite well. So basically, my definition again, it is, that simple sense of, the moving forwards towards a specific goal, destination, however you want to label it as, and as Connor was saying, you're looking at that those specific, measures, whether that's strength related, whether that's muscle building, and you can really dive those things down even further. And now you got to look at, okay, if I am getting stronger, what things do we start looking at? If the goal is building muscle, again, what things we start looking at. And when you're looking at things from a recovery standpoint, that has a, massive, I actually have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I'm kind of just kind of like scrambling. So we can cut that a little bit.
I was sucked in, man.
Oh, really?
That's good.
You're like massive, and my eyes were like, what are you going to say? Just tell me. God damn it, please.
I kind of, you want to know what happened? I lost my train of thought. I was like, fuck, I was going somewhere with this, and then I totally fucked up. So,
yeah.
Shit happens. But you know what was going on? I kept flocking through my computer screen, and I was like trying to like talk at the same time and flock through my computer screen. I'm like, oh my God, I'm changing pages. I'm like,
just talk. Yeah. Just talk.
Yeah.
Rather than...
I know. But, all right. So back to cutting backwards. All right. I'm actually lost my train of thought.
He's lost. Let me
I've actually
go.
lost my train.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you cut it?
Yeah, sure.
All right. You can cut it.
Yeah, I can.
All right. Go to you.
So for me, I want to take a little bit of talk about progress from the perspective of life. I feel like progress in life should always relate to progress in the gym and stuff like that as well. So if you have that perspective, then you're going good. So for me, progress is, am I better today than what I was yesterday? That's progress to me. So if I am definitely better person, a better man, I have a better mood, then I am obviously progressing than yesterday. And if I am still negative and still pondering upon the thought that oh my God, I had lost something yesterday and I'm still in that, as in, I couldn't squat a 45 extra plate of 45 yesterday. I mean 45 pounds here, not kilos. So I couldn't squat an extra plate of 45, and I'm still sitting on with the same mood that, oh my God, then I'm regressing. But if I'm thinking that, okay, let's do 20s today, 20 pounds, and then add on 20 more, and then the last 5 pounds add on the day after, that's when I'm progressing and I have a progressive thought. So I feel like having a progressive thought and progressing in front not only helps you in life, helps you in the gym, and also helps you stay fit. So progress, people. Nick, on to you. What's your definition of progress?
So my definition of progress is just moving forward, so towards a goal, destination, however you want to define it. And when it comes to, all things related to training, the way I look at it is, we're in training, we're always, looking for a stimulus in, the exercises that we choose and the workouts that we, they obviously have a goal that we want to do. Say, for example, we want to build our quad muscles, right? We have a select of exercises that we choose and we're trying to create a new stimulus for that, right? Or, something like that every single week that will, eventually produce the goal of building muscle. Now, it's not just about doing that. Now, what also comes with that is, recovery and then adaptation. So when you're looking at stimulus, recovery, and adaptation, we've got to make sure we're ticking off all the markers that obviously are, relating to the, the term progress. So when we're looking at recovery, are we sleeping well? Are we eating enough? Are we, doing all the little things, right, in order to recover and therefore adapt to then therefore create a new stimulus. So if things aren't necessarily going well to plan, say for example, recovery is slack and your sleep is poor, you can actually lead to a sequence of regression. And that when that tends to happen, there's a lot of physiological things that can, occur. Your mood can change, your motivation to train can change, and therefore you start to take a little step backwards. Generally when, for example, I've been in situations like that, I do kind of switch to a more maintenance style of training. I especially with food and things like that, like I think you guys all know when we go into like those extreme ends. So those extreme ends of dieting really hard, or actually even like the opposite end when you're trying to, you know, put on size and you're trying to eat as much food as possible. Sometimes it's really hard to do, you know, like trying to scoff all that food down, or sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to like, you know, like eat such very little food. But when that's taken a toll on you physiologically, I switched to a maintenance type thing just to kind of, you know, it will give me a step further down the track. I'm just taking a little breather. Yes, like, you know, I'm not progressing forwards or I'm not kind of going backwards. I'm just kind of taking that little stand in the middle to like potentiate things moving forward. So when you're looking at progress, maintenance, and regression, that's kind of how I look at it from a training perspective.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the next question you'd ask yourself is, why the hell does it matter? So who wants to jump in first? Let Prantik go first. Why does progress matter?
Let me talk about it from the perspective of how you guys knew me when I was back in Australia. So I think it matters from the vision a person has. That's from my perspective. You guys might have a different one. So if a person has a vision, like back at that time, I had a vision of becoming of nationals coming up. For example, the national season B was coming up, and I was about to compete in that. So for me, a progression in the terms of my progress then was very perspective. So for my perspective was to lose fat and get as lean as well as maintain my muscle mass at the same time as possible. So I was progressing towards the fact that I have to get a rank in the show. I have to be the better person. I have to be my best, actually. I had to bring out the best Prantik on stage on the day of the show. So that was my goal, and that was what was leading me to progress every day, to train better, to eat better. Obviously, that also motivated me to get up and go to the gym at 5 a.m. in the morning, 6 p.m. at night, and stay up late till 10 p.m. So I feel like motivation is something that actually kicks you in the butt and makes you go into that mode of progress. Uh, if you don't have a goal fixed, as Nick said, goal derived is very important. So if you're not goal derived, I feel like you go astray, and then you never find it's hard to put yourself back on the track of progress. So why the hell do we need it? We definitely need progress to reach our goals, to attain what we plan for ourselves and our bodies in the future. So that's my take on why we need it. Who's jumping next?
Cool.
For me, I find, you know, like as a personal trainer myself, the whole sole purpose of our, you know, duty is to help clients progress. And for me personally, as one that, you know, if I take training seriously, is because when I'm trying to teach someone else, or I'm trying to train someone else, like I got to know what I'm doing, right? And I use my body. Obviously, I use, you know, research things and out there, but I use myself as a tool to try so many different methods or so many different ways, and just understanding, you know, what happens to me physically, emotionally, and yes, someone might not be the same person as me, but if I can just grasp an understanding, you know, of how to do that myself, then, you know, I can then teach that to others. And that's basically my sole purpose, as to why, you know, like I train the way I do, or train as hard as I want to do, because I use that as a tool of, you know, helping clients progress in, you know, their goals.
That is cool.
So I think for why it matters as well, I think it's very simple in the sense that, okay, why does it matter if you're trying to make more money, you're trying to have a goal, that you check your bank account? It's the same kind of analogy. You need kind of track of things going forward. And then, as Nick was kind of mentioning with like stimulus, recovery, and adaptations and all those kinds of things for stimulus moving forward, seeing the progress is the answer to, is what I'm doing working? Or can I just keep going as I am because I'm getting the response I want? I am progressing. So you will know if you're not progressing if none of the qualitative or quantitative measures you're actually testing for are moving. So I think that's the main reason for why it matters. as for the next question, so what does progress look like in the gym? And then second to that, what makes things more valid for certain goals? So an example could be what kind of metrics you use. So anyone want to jump in there?
Prantik, so actually I've always had this question for you. So you were heavily into bodybuilding when I knew you down here. You know, like you weren't the you weren't the tallest guy going around, right? But I knew you had the aspiration of, you know, I want to be as big as I can possible. Like, how did you measure that?
As in, are you talking about how did I compare myself to someone?
Well, physically, or your lifts in the gym, like
Mhm.
when did you go and like how did you say when you're looking at your program from week 1 to week 2, you know, what was your ways of progressing?
But my
So
thing
what
was,
did you look for? Yeah, to make sure you know you're
yeah.
progressing. Yeah.
So if I'm talking about measurable physical quantity or measurable something which you can measure and which you can see, I was definitely going for that look because that's the first thing that you can. So looking yourself in the mirror a week after you've done like hardcore dieting and when you're cutting yourself off, you can definitely see some changes. The other thing I really want to I really want to talk about as a factor of things that you can notice and that you can make out when you're physically changing is the quality of the skin. Because as you see, if I pull up my skin and my bicep, you see how thin the skin is. So I probably think it's the subcutaneous fat that is missing here, or very less subcutaneous fat. But now if I do the same with my belly, it's not the same. As I was mentioning to Conor before, I have a pork belly right now. So
Been enjoying some good
that's,
food, he's saying.
yeah. So, but back at the time when I was really competing and when I was really in that hardcore mentality of looking better than getting progress, and lack of better terms, and looking better than yesterday, I was obviously looking at the paper thin skin. Uh, and I did achieve it. My skin went really, really thin. So that means the subcutaneous fat was missing. So you could actually, you know, like I'm holding my skin of my arm like that. It's easy to pinch it up. It was that easy to pinch it up. So it was more of a uh, physical phenomena or a physical appearance that was helping me judge where I am with my progress at that point. Uh, as you guys know, with comp prep, things get harder as you go closer to the stage date because people are depreciated from a lot of nutrients, and we don't have we are very low on carbs, which is the driving fuel for our body. Am I correct there, Connor and Nick? Carbs are the driving fuel of the body.
It can be. They're usually the first go-to source
Hmm.
as it relates to ATP and the rest, yeah.
So I'm not totally wrong in that. So we were very low on carbs and we are very weak. So I couldn't really judge my progress in case of lifts, as Nick was mentioning, that where you looking at lifts, because lifts become weaker then. You cannot bench or squat um, 4 plates of 20. Which I could never do 4 plates of 20. I've never tried it. I've never went there, but I definitely did 3 plates of 20 at a point.
Have you ever tried, like when you were in those like final stages, have you ever like tried, you know, pushing yourself to those like grinding limits?
Yeah, I did try. I definitely did try pushing myself, and the thing is, I was very cautious about how I was training, and I was also cautious about being. I was also careful about not hurting myself. And I did hurt myself, as you know. I did hurt my right arm, and it was 2 days before training when I hurt it, and then I got back thanks to some good
Mm.
friends I had.
Mm.
So, but the things are like, but you have to be very careful. That's what I say, that you have to be very careful and at the same time very intelligent about how you're training yourself
Mm.
and what you're training like. So
Mm.
that's where I feel like, Nick, that's where the term knowing your progress or knowing the limits and progressing in the correct path also comes in. I guess you guys will be able to direct people in that correct direction, uh, focus people in the correct direction. For me, at that time, progress was much related to the physical appearance rather than lifts in the gym. But yes, when I'm in the off season, I definitely try to push myself for more lifts, more better lifts. So that's different progress. So it's seasonal. I call it seasonal. Progress is seasonal and it changes. So
yeah. So I think with like figuring out progress and the like, sorry, jump in, Nick. I think what you're looking at, you need to have a system. So you've got the big category, which you could say is have a great physique in bodybuilding, or for strength, it could be like, what is your like powerlifting total or whatever. But for the bodybuilding, then you got to subcategorize it. Okay, so what makes bodybuilding? So you've got like your level body fat, you got your overall muscularity, and you've got the symmetry. So with those three things, for tracking progress and the like, and what metrics you use, you try and use the most valid system you can for each of those. So for example, for body fat, yeah, look is a big factor. Do I look leaner? You can also use metrics such as skin folds. You can use, like Prantik was referring to, pinching his arm. For you audio only listeners, I couldn't see it. So you try and have a measure that's very good for that. For the muscular side of things, you've got, look, is the tape measure showing us bigger once you get, equate for the skin folds? Are you able to do more weight in the gym? And how you can tell that is, so being able to do more weight in the gym is partly a factor of the overall size of the muscle, as well as like technique, neural efficiency, and all the rest. So in making a good metric for that, and this kind of ties to powerlifting as well, okay, what improvements in weight can be categorized to neural or technique, and what can be categorized to just bigger muscle? So you try and do things that aren't as specific, aren't as low rep. For example, okay, if your squat goes up 10 kilos in your 1RM, yeah, maybe you've gained muscle, but you're probably more likely to gain muscle if your 1RM and the leg extensions went up. You're probably even more valid again if your 10RM and leg extensions going up. And you've pretty much guaranteed, pardon my language, so to have made progress if your 4x10 leg extensions went up, because now it's just that category. So you're measuring, okay, that's a quantitative thing. It doesn't have influence from other things. So that's why I'm now better. So with your metrics, you want to have things that are really specific. So, I mean, you could go like look bait day to day, but we all know like the look can change a little bit, like one day you look more watery, one day you look more flat, one day you look dry, one day you look hard kind of thing. So plus changes don't happen overnight. So you might say, okay, that's a good measure of your eye. But then you got the psychology part of it. We're always hard on ourselves, and sometimes you're feeling yourself. So your mood can decide if you're lean or not. So that's kind of a good measure. But like the skin fold doesn't lie as much as long as it's a good person. So you're basically looking for whatever metric best reflects the characteristic. So yeah, that's how I go by metrics for tracking progress.
If I'm looking at a client's perspective too, even or myself, like I guess it depends on the experience level. So a beginner's way of looking at progress is completely different to someone who's advanced. A beginner, a lot of the things are technique based. So someone coming into the gym, it's literally motor learning. So for them, of course, them coming into the gym and suddenly, doing so much resistant exercise, they are bound to build some muscle, get stronger, and things like that. It's almost as though like those advanced people that do track their progress as in a means of, where they record, every single session and making sure that the previous session is like, they beat their reps or they increase their weight or, they've accumulated more sets or something like that. A beginner, yes, they can track that kind of stuff, but I think personally, getting them to look at the technique on their exercises, for them, that's their way of looking at progress. Can they squat better? Can they deadlift better? Just things like that, getting their mechanics right. I think I think it's different for everyone. I think most advanced people, they look at things, like I just said, monitoring, their volume and Prantik, as you were saying before, I think the good term to use is your maximum recoverable volume. So when you're getting towards the end of, or getting close to your competitions, you want to try and not go over your recovery capabilities. You're trying to do just enough to still stimulate some form of adaptation, but not go so far that it's going to be so detrimental to your progress. So yeah, that's basically how, you know, what I look for in a range of different people. Like I said, whether they're beginning or whether they're advanced. So yeah.
Cool. So I think you've kind of tied into the next question that we had there, which was how to make sure your clients are progressing or even yourself are progressing. So Prantik, do you want to have a thought in there? Like, how do you make sure you're progressing? So going from point A to point B being, you know, something you can do.
Progressive. Well, progressing to me, as you know, was seasonal. So the best way to be progressive is, as Nick says, obviously you don't have to really write down everything or like note down. Oh, I'm doing 3 sets on the 50s today, so next week I'm going to put it up. But having a general overall plan of progression, like you know, the fact here's where where I want to introduce progressive overloading, because I've been training in that same fashion, probably from the time when I started to train correctly. Uh, and progressive overloading, actually, I've seen it's effective in my case. Uh, it might be effective in everyone's case because a lot of people on the internet says, try everything, try giant sets, try this, try that. Definitely, a person should give everything a go to see what actually acts for them, and whatever actually works for them is progress. And I feel like adhere to it, adhere to a certain thing that works for you. So if vanilla ice cream is your favorite, so adhere to it rather than going for a raspberry banana split or something like that. You know, okay, things get complicated, and you're not in your comfort zone. But it's not being how let me put it in the correct way. Not being in the comfort zone is good, but not being in a comfort zone where you're not comfortable being in the comfort zone, if you know what I mean. It's like Inception, you know.
I watched that movie last night, legit.
So dreaming into your dream, so something like that. So not being comfortable in your not being comfortable in being in not your comfort zone is dangerous. That's where you should know your limits, and that's where I feel knowing where to progress and how to progress and having a plan to progress comes in. So people, this would probably be better explained by people like you guys who does personal training as profession, where you can definitely guide a client in the correct direction before they actually fall off the cliff. You know, some of the clients think that planet Earth is flat, so that's where you guys come in and tell them that no, god damn it, it's round. So that's wrong as well. It's not actually round, it's ovoid. So that's the shape of it. Oh god damn it, it's not round, it's ovoid. So something like that, you know. So stuff like that is what helps you put yourself back on the track of progression. So did you get the answer from that? Did I answer it correctly, Conor?
I liked how you answered it. I really liked how you tied into the psychology of it as well. Like, there's a principle of, you know, progressive overload that we're probably going to have to talk about at this stage now, with the question being how to make sure your client's progressing. But I liked how you played on something that I wouldn't have initially jumped to, which is to have the mindset towards doing it and being mentally, you know, good to doing it and knowing when to back off. Because again, one of the keys of progressing is just not regressing. It's a classic, you can take 2 steps forward, but if you're taking 3 steps back, that's not going to help you. So how to make sure clients are progressing? I think, yeah, the principle of progressive overload becomes particularly more important now. So with the gym, you have thresholds. So you have physical thresholds. So the audio people can't see my hand, but it will progressively raise. You have demands. So if you're used to this amount, eventually you need a bit more in order to progress. Now, there's a bit of like argument of like chicken or the egg, like does adding 2.5 kilos to the bar, a rep, a set, a blah, blah, blah. Is that your form of progressing? Or can you add a 2.5 to the bar, add another rep, add another set, because you've already done the adaptations beforehand? And I actually believe that statement is more true. So it's almost like with the chicken and the egg style thing of progressive overload. You get the right stimulus, you'll eventually get an adaptation, which will allow you to do more. So you work your way at 100 kilos because you're used to it. You do the right stimulus, because with all these different thresholds, you're now able to do 2.5 if that's something that you're trying to do. So with this, basically it's hard to not talk about progressive overload without all the other principles, but the main principles you'll talk about is there's a minimum threshold, and you can subsector that into, okay, there's a threshold for strength, endurance, all that. Subsector, there's a thing for hypertrophy, for strength, blah, blah, blah. Of hypertrophy, you got like thresholds for mechanical tension. You got thresholds for metabolic stress. You got thresholds for muscle damage, being like multiple mechanisms of hypertrophy. So you should make that subsector of that workout being more mechanical tension than previously. As long as you can recover from the like, you will have an adaptation. Because those things eventually beat themselves down, and then that's the value of, okay, I've been working the mechanical tension pathway for a while. My thresholds, how much I need, is pretty low for metabolic stress, because I've been training it so much. So that's when Prantik can go from the vanilla ice cream back to the chocolate raspberry ice cream, and he can get the response now from a lower dose. Banana split. Right. We didn't really get those in Australia. It's one of the things I'm jealous of. You see like the diners and like Greece and that kind of thing. It's like, God damn. Okay, seriously, no subtopic. God damn it, Australia. I'm looking at you people in the cameras. We need like a Wendy's. We need no more so like an IHOP, a Denny's. Just so we can order random crap. You've got no idea. Sometimes I want to order a steak and a pancake at the same time, but I can't do that. I've got to go to a steak restaurant and order a goddamn pancake. But I see how you guys do it there. And this is why we're talking about progression. This is why America's #1, baby. That patriotism is true. It works because you goddamn have Denny's and you have your IHOP. We can order random shit.
Go ask your president. Ask your president.
You did a great job. Right. People of America.
Man, you actually pretty much covered
all of
progressive overload in that. Yeah, so that's perfect. I don't think we really need to go much further into that unless you want to, but if there's anything I will kind of say on that is
I have a question for you, Nick. So probably you can answer this same topic in this question.
You just cut me off. That's all right.
I'm sorry. But I'm saying like, baby. Could you talk about how you guide your clients towards the correct path of progress? What are your strategies?
Well, this is actually what I was just about to say. But
thou shalt speak.
It's not, look, of course, like everything that Conor said is perfect. And us trainers, we, especially for our clients, we rewrite this stuff down. But sometimes a client can look at that, may not understand everything that they're reading, or they look at that and they're like, okay, I can see an increase in numbers. A lot of time they revert back to how they feel, or what they see in the mirror and things like that. And that's why, when you're asking, it sounds so cliche, but when you're asking them simple questions like, how are you feeling? Or, just asking them directly, like, do you feel like you're making progress? Or just words of encouragement and things like that. Sometimes, hear what they have to say. Because, of course, the most important thing to any training program, before you even hit progression, is adherence to it, right? So, making sure that they're, enjoying what they're doing, and just, literally having fun with it, and all things like that tie into that tends to lead down the path of progression. And that's where us trainers having the notebooks out and writing everything down and just making sure, the numbers are going forwards, and, maybe even taking video screenshots so they can actually visually see what they look like when they perform a squat, deadlift, and things like that. I think them seeing a perspective of themselves visually and then just asking them simple questions can really, you can get a lot out of, how they actually are progressing mentally, which will translate, physically as well. As long as us trainers are doing, the right thing, helping them towards that. does that answer your question? And yeah, cool. Connor, do you have anything like about that specifically? What do you do on that? Like, of course, I know how you track your clients and stuff like that, but like consultations, it's basically going back to that, sitting down or simple phone calls and stuff like that. Consultations with clients, seriously, I find them very, very valuable. And I think for a client, it might not sound like sexy at first, like consultation, like what is this, like a doctor's appointment or something like that? Like when you get to the second, third, fourth or fifth, check-ins and things like that, just conversations like that, you can, the trainer can get so much out of the client, just like the client can get so much out of the trainer. It's basically question time. And, reevaluating, where they're at, their goals and things like that. It's a really handy way of, tracking progress. And I think the trainer that doesn't do those things, the trainer that doesn't have those conversations, it's just, all right, it's come in. Okay, you're supposed to squat 95 for 100 kilos today. Cool. All right, see you next week. Let's be honest, like
money in the account.
Yeah, it's money in the account. When you're sitting down and you're doing those, the check-ins, that's where the gold is. So, that's basically my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to care about your clients. Like, it really does matter. I think it's hard to talk about just progress in isolation because it encompasses a bunch of other things. And you start to talk about adherence, which is perfect because, look, we use quantitative, as we've talked quite a bit more about today, but we definitely use qualitative measures as well to make sure, we're progressing. And yeah, in terms of like, how do you feel? Are you enjoying things? These things, they really do matter because, as I kind of mentioned with the kind of block taking steps back thing, the first step to making sure, you're progressing is not regressing or maintenance. If your clients or yourself aren't enjoying what you're doing, and again, there's a little bit of give and take. Again, there's nothing ultra fun about really, really hard stuff, but 95%, on a big philosophical level, are you enjoying what you're doing? It'll mean you'll stick to it. You'll adhere to it long term. And the person with the best training program for 1 month, they adhere to 75% won't get as good a result as someone that is able to adhere, 12 months out of the year and even execute a 50%. 50% quality program. So, it does matter. I think especially when you're looking out for these kind of things, when you got that care, you pick up things that you otherwise wouldn't if you're just on your phone thinking about is the money in the account kind of thing. You can see it. Like sometimes people are trying to prove things to you, for example. I can think of people saying, I can do another rep, and they're just slouched, they're dripping, they're feeling horrendous, their form is going, but they want to show you they've got like good spirit and like good motivation and determination and all those cool things. But you can see those things, and sometimes it's things that you only see if you're really looking at things. So I know we kind of like went a bit in a different direction, but again, it's really hard to keep these topics just on progress because it is so multifaceted. It ties into everything.
Exactly.
So I think when like on the other podcast, on Prantik's podcast, I mentioned that fitness is like in a way multifaceted, and you're trying to tie in all these different principles as into one to get one answer when we're dealing with multiple different things and people that are different. And you've got to have that care. You've got to have a degree of creativity to really get the best response out of that, to kind of manipulate, well, this is going for a pro, but this is a con. This is a person's circumstance. So look, probably a bit different. I'm not sure if I answered your question perfectly, Nick. Probably onto a side rant.
No, man. No. But, that's basically, and for the viewers out there, when you're looking at progress, like just all those points that Conor and I have just touched base on, it's start looking at those things as well, because things aren't just always about, numbers. And as much as they are very, very important for all you trainers out there, like Conor said, just simply caring can really go a long way in helping clients progress. Now, this goes in towards, our last question. Does progression, metrics, or even what we're just talking about just then, and methods change as you get more advanced? Okay, so Conor, we'll kick you off. We'll get you started with this one. So the more advanced you are as an athlete, or whatever, the progression methods and things like that, do they start to change?
I think it's worthy first off mentioning that the more trained you are, the harder you'll find progress. So that's just something we call the law of diminishing returns. The more you do something, you get less of feedback over time. You can even try just at home, like flicking a hand. You'll notice and feel something immediately. You keep flicking that same spot, it'll become more numb. The main word, desensitized. I know Nick mentioned a while ago, like maintenance periods and how they can resensitize you both physically and psychologically and the like. But yeah, eventually, anyway, you have the law of diminishing returns. So it's hard to get a response. So suddenly just a blanket do this kind of thing isn't okay, it's good, but need to be really, really specific. You're looking for a specific stimulus. So at this stage, when you're really advanced, adherence, yeah, it's important. You got to care, but usually that's what knocks people off in the beginner to intermediate stages. I'm just going to hypothetically talk about advanced and you're going to be pretty good to adhere. So there, you've got to look into the little, like the slips, the cracks in their training that they're just missing out on. Like, for example, you look at a lift of a squat, they are particularly strong, the top 2/3 of the movement, they're particularly weak the bottom. You can look at, again, range, you can look at exercise selection, you can look at tempo, you can look at anything that's going to contribute to the actual stimulus. And then there, you've got to go really unique and dig right into it. So as like Prantik was mentioning with like progressive overload, or how it's usually seen as progressive overload training, which is like low volume, during Yatesy and the like. And then you move to a giant set kind of thing. It is an overloading stimulus, but it's you got to find the cracks there. So the one crack of the low volume thing is you don't get some of the adaptations of high volume. There's many weaknesses of the high volume, but you might miss out on some of the really high effort, high threshold motor units that are only gathered in the really hard and intense sets that you can only achieve at low volumes because you wouldn't be able to achieve it at high volumes. Basically, you're trying to find the little cracks. So as for the metrics, honestly, you go for the same metrics for the most part in terms of you just look at all the qualitative and quantitative things that make you better. It's just sometimes it's going to be a lot different route to get there. So instead of being a straight road from A to B, it'll be a road of A to I don't know, D, C, B. That was a hard example.
So would you say this is where, for an advanced athlete, this is where exercise selection is just so important? Because when you're thinking about some of the strongest, athletes in the world that can squat ridiculous amounts, think about the fatigue that accumulates, when you can squat that much, and the amount of time it takes to recover in order to squat that amount again, or more. Whether that's more sets, to be honest, if someone's squatting, 400 kilos, seriously, doing multiple sets of that would kill me. But would you say, more on the, let's say, the hypertrophy base, exercise selection, really comes into play a lot, especially towards those people that do tend to do higher volume type workouts?
Sorry, just to clarify the question, does exercise selection matter more to people who do high volume workouts?
Well, yeah, like, yes.
As you're stronger as well?
As you get stronger, that's the main point.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things when you get stronger is in terms of thresholds and recovery. So how trainable you are, what's your recovery like? Nick said maximum recoverable volume, which is basically the volume you can recover from. That number actually goes down as you get stronger and more trained. Like a lot of things go up in time, but that actually goes down because you create more fatigue per set because you're using more weight. Your, 30-inch quad is bigger than your 20-inch quad that it used to be. So there's more damage and recovery from that consequential breakdown, which is one of the weird reasons why more advanced athletes belong at a lower training frequency than a more newer one. So as for exercise selection, you're dealing with less recovery, but the stimulus thresholds are even higher. So it's hard for people with just audio only, but the gap between how much you can recover from and how much you need, that gap is closing. And sometimes you're in a caloric deficit, it's almost the same. You need to just perfect things just to maintain things on the physique side of things. So suddenly, doing a 70% movement is not going to cut it. You need something that's, or at least across all your exercises, going to train something in every single range of motion that you need at the exact tension and thresholds you need. So for example, if you're after muscle damage of the hamstrings, so the length and position is something you need to target, for example. lying leg curl just won't cut it because your architecture, as well as how the weight is delivering tension, it just won't cut it on the lying leg curl for getting that muscle damage the best you can. You're probably going to need something that's going to overload you in the stretch position. And not just that, you need the right exercise, but you need to multiply at the right tempo. You don't do a 2-second squeeze of the hamstrings at the top of the movement of an RDL. It's not going to benefit you as much as a 2-second hold in the stretch. The same thing applies across the lying leg curl. The peak contraction is the most beneficial part there, but the stretch is the RDL. So you need to line up the training with the tempo, which all comes back to the stimulus. The stimulus needs to be above the threshold. It all ties to stimulus and threshold. And as you get more advanced, you need to nail these things because you haven't got recovery to waste. It's really hard. So to get those thresholds, to do enough of the right stuff, but to not overtrain yourself, that gap becomes smaller. So you need to look into the mechanics of things, the moment arms. You need to look into what ranges of motion, target muscles more. You also need to understand your own muscle strength curve as well as like the weight strength curve. You need to understand that you're stronger on an eccentric versus a concentric. All these different strength curves. You line all these things up to get the right stimulus. And you just got to nail it at that stage, because just walking to the gym and doing the same thing you've done for years ain't going to cut it, because again, that progression overload principle and hitting those thresholds. So hopefully that answers your question there.
Yeah. That's basically it. And so for the viewers out there, just to clarify, so you're saying that as an advanced athlete or an athlete that's becoming more advanced, the amount of volume decreases as you get stronger. Is that correct?
You can recover from less volume there. That's fair to say.
Yeah. So would you say it's, if they were to do more volume, how would you describe, would you start to see regression? Is that tend to be the...
So again, if you go over that maximum recoverable volume that we're talking about, at the point of maximum recoverable volume, you're at maintenance. Anything above that, you are regressing, because what you're doing, you're not recovering from. You need the full healing process. You grow outside the gym is something you might have heard. It's one of those weird things where you need to do more, you can get away with less at the start of the year because those low thresholds, those quote unquote minimum effective doses. But as you get more advanced, you need to do more to a degree on a big sense. I mean, you have to do more sets, but you need to do more in some way, shape or form. As you get older, but more advanced, recoverability goes down. And then you get into the regression. So again, before that, why it matters to track these things is to make sure the bank account is going in the right direction. Is what I'm doing now making me money? So maybe you're doing, you're overworking yourself, then your work's poor, then you get fired. That's a weird example. Tied to finances, you don't make the money. So again, there is too much training you can do, and you get to that stage, you won't get the adaptations you want. So you need to, again, have those quantitative and qualitative checkpoints, not just about my progressing, but hey, am I doing too much? And you might use things such as, again, performance, look, sex drive, energy, things like that to see if I'm actually doing too much, like higher chance of injury, all these things.
One of the things that I personally like to do, so say for example, you take an exercise and you go through mesocycle after mesocycle after mesocycle, and you take it to absolute brick. You get ridiculously strong in it, and then maybe you hit a plateau. You tend to substitute that exercise out, replace it with something else, and then you take that exercise now, and then you just take it all the way to the end, and then you bring that other exercise back in, right? Is that something? Is that how you would do your programming if you've taken an exercise to the brink?
Okay.
You bring it out and then you bring it back in.
You are hugely speaking to the Dante Trudell, Scott Stevenson, Jordan Peters crowd. And that's like a thought process. And that's I love those people. They're really forefront people. And a lot of these people probably thought of this question, but eventually you do get to a stage where you're stagnated. Now, at that stage, I've done it before. You progressively overload, you're revealing your capacity, you do more, and then you're stagnant the week after, stagnant the week after. Usually, from what I understand, I can't speak to 100% absolutes all the time, the answer is to switch out an exercise. And there is value to that because variety is a handy training principle. So it's interesting that specificity is important, so you get good things you practice, yet just like going from tension to metabolic stress, or ice cream to banana split. Variety has more of a response later on. But once you get there, the question would be, well, okay, I was stagnant week A, week B, week C, but you're progressing all before that. Well, what makes me better or worse week to week? And what do you need? You need just like you need muscle protein synthesis to see muscle protein breakdown, you need whatever stimulus you're doing to reap more of a training effect than whatever fatigue is causing things. So you just got to get the right stimulus. So like people are big into like philosophy, psychology, those things. The big question they always ask themselves is the why. And you keep searching deeper and it's like, why? They're big in that field. The center of all this shit is the right stimulus. So usually with those people, it's like, okay, was the amount of volume I'm doing right? Was tempo, reps in reserve, all those things? Were they the right thing to get me through the next week? Because just changing exercise, you're going to, look, you get great results, don't get me wrong. Like that, this is really advanced, but you need to look into, okay, why didn't I progress week A to week B to week C before I change those exercise? And you need the right stimulus. And sometimes that's where they're missing, because that's where you should be getting better and better and better. Again, it's hard. There's less of like a response. And sometimes you'll improve 1%, but the smallest weight increment you can add is 2.5%, like in terms of like a weight on a barbell, for example. So sometimes it just doesn't add up. But that's the only part that's missing of that, because it was so good with so many things, the Dante crowd. But that's probably the last thing that's missing. Like what stimulus will get me to the next stage? And yeah, variety of exercise is handy, but it's also just waiting for a problem to occur later.
So do you think people substitute things out too early?
They can do. I think in a lot of sense, people can blame the wrong thing, like for why they're not progressing as well. It's like, was it the exercise, or was it, the amount of sets? Was it the frequency? Was it which, physiological pathway was under? Was it my sleep? Was my eating? Like same thing. Like people are like, oh,
there's so many different things. Yeah.
I added beta alanine into my protocol and I added 5 kilos of muscle mass. Motherfucker, you also started trend. Like, don't contribute towards like the one thing, So in terms of, is exercise the answer? Sometimes, but usually not. Usually it's like exercise is part of the stimulus. So it's what you're doing. Like the exercise itself is like the mechanical side, but then all the physiological things underneath that encompass that as well. It's all got to tie together, like the muscle damage being a better choice for a stretch position for the hamstrings, a better choice, isn't as good a choice at the same time for a lying leg curl for a contracted position. So you just got to line all that shit up together. You line the tempo, you line how much you can recover from an RDL. I think you'll find, for example, you can recover from more sets for lying leg curl than an RDL to a degree. Maybe not in the workout, but across the week, so again, you just got to look at these things. So everything's got to tie together to that big why, the stimulus. It's got to all zoom in and all work towards one thing. And that's something that Kasim Hansen has been really good at producing. So everything's got to lie to it. So if it's mechanical tension, what's going to have tension across the whole range? And you use, okay, what kind of tempo would best enhance that? What kind of exercise, like you're saying, would best enhance that? With that, how many sets can you do? What's rep range has a trade-off of having a good amount of tension, but getting enough of it, so but make sure it's also high at the same time and hitting the intensity thresholds. It's all got to line together. And this is the key to that next level advanced progression, because again, you've only got so much room, but you've got to fucking add up that little 1% here and 1% here, 1% there, and then you get a 10% response. When if you just go, same old work you've done for years, you're probably not going to achieve that. So implementing the principles of variety, stimulus, all these different things at the right time with the right methods all together to get the biggest magnitude of response. Yeah.
Viewers, you can see why I was picking Conor's brain on that one, because I knew like in the back of my mind, this guy has got some knowledge based on that. So thank you, Conor, for sharing all that information. Prantik, I was just going to, just quickly ask you, like you can literally sum this up in 10 seconds. I don't care. You can go on a 10-minute tangent. But what's your perspective on that?
On progress.
Well, just based on what Conor just quickly said, not quickly said,
No, it's actually well put. So I was listening to the whole thing. And I was relating so much to it, and I feel like Yeah, I mean, everything should be taken into consideration. He just summed up, actually. Conor just beautifully summed up what we all said, and I really don't have a reply after that because he has
Yeah,
taken everything into consideration. So
yeah,
I would definitely agree to whatever Conor said. He dragged
Be
in,
careful. I might ask some weird things for you
yeah,
before you agree to everything.
yeah.
yeah, he
No,
dragged
like
in
no,
all
like
the examples. That's the best thing.
yeah,
Strawberry ice cream, banana split, dragged in everything in there. So
Yeah.
I really don't have an answer after that. I feel like he's covered a lot of ground.
I think all the
and to be
listeners at this
honest,
stage, sorry, I like this stage, all listeners, I don't even listen to our training anything anymore. They're just deep in like
yeah.
it's a punnet of ice cream, just getting after it. Just hear
Yeah,
banana
they're like,
split
fuck this.
this.
This guy's right. This guy's right. I want the
Yeah.
banana split right now. Yeah. Hey, mom, where's the banana split?
Or they're just
Wedding
calling
crashes
at the
too.
restaurants. Do you guys have banana split? So
Yeah.
Mom. No, that was absolutely amazing. I think to be honest, that last topic, do you guys
yeah.
agree? We could have like had our own podcast on that, like literally just one episode based on that. That's how good it was. But you know, from me, I hope you guys got a good understanding of, you know, what we define as progress from an athlete's perspective, and then from a trainer's perspective, and you know what we look at and things like that. So yeah, that's all from me. Over
Yep.
to you.
I feel like we have had a great discussion session today where we discussed progress in a much detailed manner. We talked about everyone's experiences in it. Conor talked about it a lot, and Conor really dived in deep. I mean, he's like the real technician,
Deep.
the real technician.
Hey, if I claim the real technician, Chris Aceto will come down to my doorstep and fucking tear me a new arsehole. I don't want to touch that. Chris is a G. I'm leaving that label alone.
Yeah, but no, I mean, everyone's unique in their own experience. So Conor was talking about his own experience, and from his experience point of view, feel we covered most grounds, and I feel whoever's going to listen to this is going to benefit from it, and definitely going to rethink their path of progression. So, are you progressing or are you regressing? That's the question. And if you are progressing, are you progressing in the right way? Come and join Nick and Conor, pay them $60 an hour, and get consulted. No, I'm just kidding. So definitely, um, my take from the end of this is, if someone is looking for progression, serious training, and seriously want to change their body type, I'm not saying body type, seriously want to change how they look like, or how they imagine to look like, because exercise is all about that. Staying healthy, looking fit, staying fit, keeping the mind and muscles fit. They should definitely reach out to professional people who are doing it day in and day out. Uh, and especially those people who are dedicated to it, not those people like Conor said are doing it for the bank balance. Oh, I want 120 an hour in my bank. So let's go. Oh, 95. Let's slap on 2 more plates, and I don't care if you can lift or not. But wow, that's a great job. Wow, you at least slapped on the plates. That's a big deal. But no, you have to take into consideration the fact that you are progressing, even if you are putting, as Conor say, 2.5 kilos on each side, no matter how little the weight is. But you're progressing in the right manner, and you're progressing. That's the biggest thing. Um, be careful of that. So, Conor, if you'd like to wrap it up and give your finishing speech.
Yippee-ki-yay. No.
Motherfucker.
I guess we're going to wrap it up. So, guys, thank you for listening to our podcast. This is our first one, so I don't know if we sounded good, stiff. We'd love your feedback. So, comment, like, subscribe, share. I'm making this stuff up, guys. I just hear these YouTubers do it. I'm like, I'm going to try and do what they're doing. It sounds cool. Yeah, and just, get on that PayPal, get into Nick's OnlyFans and... No, we'll be back next week for some more stuff. But yeah, really enjoyed chatting progress with you guys.
Sure, that was great.
Thank you for watching the Forge podcast. If you enjoyed it, we'd love for you to subscribe. If you want to find out more about us, check the description. And as always, thank you for listening.